but it really shouldn't be going that way because the characters are saying like, no, 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 we should be going this way. But the writer is so entrenched in wanting to go this way because they have this plan and they want XYZ to happen. And it's like sometimes you got to blow that all up and go the other direction. Hi, my name is Madeleine Holly-Rosing. I'm the writer-creator of not only the steampunk supernatural series, Boston Metaphysical Society, but also my new series, Morgana Pendragon. You can find me currently on Kickstarter, but also on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, and our website, queenofmercia.com. And you're watching and listening to Two Geeks Talking.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Two Geeks Talking is an entertainment industry interview show where we interview the creative people from the comic, film, TV, movie, and video game industries. And of course, I'm your host, Kurt Sasso. We're joined today by a returning guest. This is her fifth time on the show. She's now part of the illustrious five-timer club of Two Geeks Talking. She's been on the show in the past, of course, with Boston Metaphysical Society. And she is, of course, bringing a brand new comic series, which is amazingly called Morgana Pendragon. We're joined by the ever-talented Madeleine Holly-Rosing. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show, Kurt. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's good having you. You know, I'm always used to seeing Boston Metaphysical Society, and this is why I edit. And you're bringing a brand new comic series. But for those that don't know anything about yourself as a creative person, tell us who you are and what you're bringing to Two Geeks Talking today.
Well, most people know me from my long-running steampunk supernatural series, Boston Metaphysical Society, which is about an ex-Pinkerton detective, a spirit photographer, and a genius scientist who battles supernatural forces in late 1800s Boston. We've been around for actually a little over a decade and are probably one of the longest-running comics on Kickstarter. But as many people said, have been urging me to do is like, when are you going to do something else? When are you going to do something else? And I've had Morgana Pendragon in the back of my mind for actually probably a couple decades. Its origin story comes from a screenplay I wrote when I was at UCLA Film School, but that was many years ago, and I'm not the same person. I'm not the same writer. So I wanted to take a total 360-degree turn on that. I basically trashed that screenplay. It has nothing to do with that screenplay other than the title character. And I wanted a character who was middle-aged, a middle-aged female to be exact, because we just don't see a lot of that in comics or media at all. And most of the time when you do see a middle-aged woman in any kind of role, they're usually the mom, the grandmother, the auntie, and it's also like the feisty auntie, or the wicked witch, something as banal as that. Often we are ignored or diminished in society, and which is a shame because of our life experience, we have a lot to offer, not only our families, but society as a whole. And in the past, Morgana Pendragon has, most of the time, we've been introduced to her from a male point of view. And she's been portrayed as a seductress, a monster, narcissistic, and sometimes just, plain mustache twirling evil. But often this is what women of intelligence and power have been called throughout history. So I wanted to tell her story 20 years after she had fled England and is working as a mercenary, has a mercenary team. And the only reason she's returning to England is because she's essentially received an order for her to return because her brother, King Arthur, is dying. And when she returns, you've got, of course, political intrigue, assassination attempts, and a threat from the north. So, but the kicker here is she no longer has use of her magic.
Wow.
And so this is going to be an interesting arc for her And she's also meeting her son for the first time after 20 years. And she had to leave Mordred behind in order to save his life. And basically kind of disenfranchise herself and hide him over the years. And so, we learn more about him, and Arthur. There's lots of great battle scenes and world building and conflict that everyone loves. Uh, and I'm very happy to say that I've got a terrific artist on board. His name's Alden Kay. He won the Mad Cave Talent Search contest last year, I believe. I believe it was last year. And he's just doing a fantastic job. The covers, the main covers are being done by Rio Burton. The variant cover, Roberta Ingranata and Warnia Sahadewa, if I pronounce her name correctly, is doing the colors. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about this one. It's, visually it's just beautiful, and I think people are really going to be engaged with the story.
Well, you've just checked off about 3 or 4 questions I had, so that worked out well.
Yeah, well, you just, you know me, just let me
I
go,
know.
and I'll cover all your bases here.
No, that works out perfectly well. Amazing art team. I've seen a couple of the images. I've looked at the Kickstarter campaign. Let's dive into the campaign itself here because it's currently ongoing. We were talking earlier on just about this briefly here, but compared to, say, Boston Metaphysical Society's Kickstarters, what's different about this particular campaign that's intriguing to you?
Well, it is a new series, so people, obviously, some people from Boston Metaphysical are going to come on board because they've enjoyed Boston Metaphysical. But with this, I also hope to bring new people on board who, weren't too keen on, the steampunk elements and enjoy more fantasy, bigger action sequences and things like that. I view this Kickstarter as a building block for future Kickstarters to introduce this new series to not only my former backers, but potentially new backers in the future. This will be a 4-issue miniseries. I view this Kickstarter as like the first step in building an audience for Morgana Pendragon.
Which is good because, like you said, a lot of people have been asking for you to do something different, which is obviously wonderful to see here. And I love the concept. I love the fact that you're using a middle-aged woman that had power that is now trying to regain a sense of self, it seems like, throughout the story, or at least her own hero's journey. And I think it's amazing because the Arthurian legend is just, ingrained in TV and film and everything like that. So I'm glad you're taking a different twist to it. Speaking about that particular twist here, what was the hardest part about creating this twist when it came to this particular series and reimagining Morgana in this creative light?
Like anything, it's building the world and the characters. Like with any story, it wasn't any particularly difficult, say, from Boston Metaphysical. The big difference is that I've had over a decade to play in the Boston Metaphysical universe, and so those characters are just, I'm going back and forth between 3 different scripts right now, between revising issue number 4 of Pike's Peak, that's going to the artist, so that's finally continuing. I'm doing drafts of Lady Mechanica, and then circling back to this. So part of it is just building a new universe. That just takes time, and who these characters are. And what is interesting is how they change when I start writing. I'll have this one idea of how they're going to go based on the biographies I've written in the history of this world that I've created. And when I write, it's like, oh, this character actually wouldn't do this thing that I want them to do. So then I have to go do what the character's doing, and often that takes me to a different place. So it's always interesting.
These characters are so well known. You just mentioned about Mordred as well, and I kind of want to touch on that. Not many people have read Arthurian Legends in the past, or those that have gotten the Cliff Notes version of it. When Morgana abandoned Mordred, and now she's coming back to face him once more, how is that going to play out? Like, how did you write that interaction and that maybe resentment?
Yeah, that was actually one of the more fun things to write because, you're talking about pretty much an angry young man who had been abandoned. And I mean, I don't want to give away all the spoilers of the story, but I mean, she left him with an older couple who were, really good people. And she left him with responsible people, but things go sideways. He ended up being raised by another man who was what I call a soldier of God, who was a knight and part of the church. And so he was raised within the confines of the church to be a warrior for the church. And magic is viewed on as evil in this world. Morgana Pendragon is very the definition of magical realism as far as a genre, but it's his learning and coming to grips, with his mother and his past and his powers, if he has any, and what that means for him. And so, and of course, you have the political intrigue of like some people like, well, if Arthur's sick, yes, he wants Constantine to succeed, but will she try to usurp him? Usurp him? Yeah, and everyone's keeping a secret. Everyone has a secret.
Sure.
Like I said, I don't want to give away too much because I'm actually like 2/3 of the way of writing issue 2. I mean, I have it all mapped out.
Okay.
So that's, people don't have to worry. It's all outlined out. So it's all there. I know where I'm going. Though occasionally when I get to issue 4, it may be like, no, this is where I thought it was going to end. And I was like, nah, I'm going to change my mind here. I think it needs to end somewhere else. So people will be taking this on a journey with me.
Will we get the behind the scenes through your social media or anything like that, or the occasional live stream of your process?
I don't live stream my process because it's so internal that it just would be boring. It's like, what, you're going to sit there and watch me like write? I mean, that's crazy. And plus things change. Like I mentioned, I'll start out, I have an outline, but sometimes you start writing and you realize it needs to go another way,
Sure.
that the characters take you another way. It's that difference between what the character wants and what the writer wants. And you always have to go with what the character wants.
This is the whole adage of characters speaking through you, or to you, I should say, as you write.
Yeah, and it's also when I watch TV shows or whatever, or reading, I can tell when a writer wants it to go a certain place, but it really shouldn't be going that way because the characters are saying like, no, we should be going this way. But the writer is so entrenched in wanting to go this way because they have this plan and they want XYZ to happen. And it's like, sometimes you got to blow that all up and go the other direction. And yeah, it often adds a lot of work to the process, but it only makes the story better.
You mentioned TV and film and how Arthurian legends are portrayed here. Is there a non-fantasy show or movie that influenced Morgana more than people would guess?
Non-fantasy. I don't think really a TV show that I can think off the top of my head or film influenced. I think what influenced it the most is the lives of real women that exist today, and their strengths and their weaknesses and their accomplishments, which, as you know, are often ignored. And as we're literally watching, they're disappearing in front of our eyes. So, this is a way to talk about accomplished women without being on a soapbox.
Correct me if I'm wrong here. Is this the first imprint of Queen of Mercia for Morgana Pendragon?
Yes, for my company, sort of, kind of. I did use the imprint for the hardbacks of Boston Metaphysical Volume 1 and Volume 2. But yeah, I just decided to make it official. I've been wanting to move everything over under the Queen of Mercia brand for quite a while, but life kept interfering. So with Morgana actually out there in the world now and having the Kickstarter, I can officially do that.
So what does that label mean to you when it comes to printing these books and finally getting everything under one umbrella?
Well, business-wise, it'll make it much easier for me. to get it under one roof. And it's also about branding. And if you've ever watched The Last Kingdom, Uhtred, son of Uhtred, and who doesn't love Uhtred, son of Uhtred? Uh, that always makes people laugh. But there was a Queen of Mercia that I think her name was Ethelred. And originally I wanted to call the company like Ethelred, but the problem is in legalese, those letters from Old English don't exist anymore. So on a legal, my lawyers would go like, "What? No, we can't. No, we can't do this. The letters are all wrong." So I just went with Queen of Mercia. I mean, because it was, I think, one of the remaining standalone kingdoms before it was eventually absorbed by King Alfred's son. I believe I'm getting this right. I believe King Alfred was the one who had the idea. People often use him that he was the idea behind King Arthur, because Alfred was the one who had the idea of bringing all the kingdoms together in England under one roof, so to speak. And he started the process but died, and I believe, if I remember correctly, his son completed it. Oh. So all of the small kingdoms in England eventually had one king, and at the time it was in Wessex. So yeah, we're in Wessex, northern part of England, and like I said, I don't want to give away the spoiler too much of who eventually to put simplistically, the big bad is. So the antagonist. And yes, it's a female antagonist. I'll say that.
Well, I'm not going to name drop, so. I am curious, though, with Arthur dying, magic is still around, but is lost upon Morgana here. What's the emotional core of this story and of the entire series, then?
The emotional core, it's a mother-son story. Okay. That's the core relationship, and having to do with trust and love, and the meaning of love when it comes to magic, and where different types of magic come from in the world that I've created.
Almost has a romantic feel to it in a sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, because it's, it deals with, quite frankly, real life trauma that people have to deal with, and the characters themselves. And also just, trying to find happiness where they can.
Kind of an odd question here, but if Morgana gave a TED Talk, what would her topic be?
Oh, that's actually fun. Let me think on that. Probably on how to lay siege to a city. Because, I mean, that's her profession. She leads a mercenary team, and if you need a war to be won, she is the one you want to hire.
The art of sieging a city is kind of lost in this day and age, It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, in Siege Warcraft. Well, I actually know way more about Siege Warcraft. That's a whole other discussion than most normal people do. So that was another life in education.
Sounds like you need to have a YouTube channel saying how to make your own siege equipment in 5 easy steps.
Yeah, because I've actually seen primary sources of original Chinese siegecraft that were used by the Mongols when they invaded Iran. I've actually written papers on that. So yeah, I know a bit about it.
If you ever decide to create a history YouTube channel, I'll be the first to subscribe. So that works out for me. I love it. If you could make this a live action version, once you get this particular series, completed in your 4 issues there, what would the live action version of this look like, and who would be the lead actors and actresses in it?
Actually, I think Eva Green would be great as Morgana because she's the right age now.
Nice.
Yeah. Let's see. Arthur. Trying to remember, because I had some ideas for that. I know Sir Godric was, I always thought of him as Ben Kingsley.
Oh, yeah.
And he's the one who took in Mordred. Nice. Yeah, I'm really bad with actor names. I mean, I'm the kind of person that remembers all the names of the dogs up and down the street, but I have no idea what my neighbors' names are.
Yeah,
Uh,
makes sense.
yeah, I just like it's like, oh, well, that's like, Kelly's house or, Buster's house or or something. But yeah, definitely Eva Green because one, she's a fabulous actress. Yeah, and she would be the right age.
Better start getting the screenplay put together, right?
Oh yeah.
In terms of the Kickstarter perks and items that are available, what do we have that people are interested in? Like, do we have metal covers? Are we, any early bird specials, things like that?
Yes, I do have early bird specials, which unfortunately will be gone this afternoon
Oh,
because I run them for 3 days and then we're done. We still have some excellent things. We do have metal covers for both covers, but the bookmarks will be to die for. Those will be metal bookmarks with Alden's art. He did one which I call The Sword and the Bird, which is just gorgeous. They're all gorgeous. And then one with Morgana and Mordred. And then I will have a special bookmark add-on, which I will reveal mid-campaign. But he actually did the art and the coloring on them. He's exceptionally talented young man. The story and how I met him was I was talking to David Walker, the writer of like Bitterroot, Planet of the Apes, Big Jim and the White Boy. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. He and I usually chat at Rose City, about cons and con life and whatever. And I told him that I was going to be looking for an artist for this new project I had. And this was last year. And he says, oh, there's this young man I saw. His work is really great. Do you want me to send him over to your table? He's going to be here. And I said, yeah, that would be great. And so Alden comes traipsing in to my table and he goes like, oh, David said you were looking for help. And I said, yeah, absolutely. And he showed me his submission to Mad Cave. And I was like, oh, I found my guy. I found my person, my artist. He's really spectacular. But what got me was that he drew women like women.
nice.
And not hypersexualized. They look like real people, all shapes, colors, sizes, everything. And also he does some really wonderful dynamic things with a page. So yeah, thank you. I've already thanked David Walker for that. Yeah, he's absolute joy to work with.
Nice.
Couldn't be happier. And he's just waiting on me. He's like, when's the next script coming in? I'm not ready now. And I'm like, I'm coming. It's just everything happened at once. Besides, as I mentioned to you, we're moving and everything goes well. Things have been a little harried.
Is there a line of dialogue you've cut from Morgana that still haunts you?
No, but there is a kind of a tagline that I thought I was going to use and I ended up not using. And that is, with age does not come wisdom, but a reckoning.
I think that's good.
And yeah, that might be integrated later, but it's just something I've thought, but I have to ponder on that some more if and when I'm going to use it.
Well, you could use it in, issue 3.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So it's not going away. It's just kind of like in a holding pattern right now.
To be used later.
Correct.
In that
Correct.
pile, wherever that is.
In that pile, yeah.
You mentioned Morgana's part of a mercenary team, and this is something I didn't ask earlier. Like a great writer and artist that you mentioned here, putting together an amazing comic series, who's the team around Morgana and her mercenary company?
I have 5 characters, and it's a multinational. The reason for that is that in the Middle Ages, England and the rest of the world wasn't all white, quite frankly. And there was a lot of movement. There was a lot more movement amongst peoples than the movies, ever demonstrate. And unfortunately, most people get their history lesson from the movies or TV and things like that. And the Silk Road was multiple roads that went through multiple countries. And it wasn't just like one road from Europe to Asia. No, there was there's like I think five different routes. Different people traveled them. One character, his name is Getty. He's West African and was originally a guard for a Turkish merchant who traveled the Silk Road, clearly well versed in languages and cultures. It wasn't until he accidentally killed the son of a powerful man that, well, he had to find a new line of work and hit the road. Lena is a Persian woman who fled Persia during the invasion of the Rashidun Caliphate. She is the money person. She's the business manager of the team, handles all the contracts, all the money, everything. Her backstory is interesting. She's much like Morgana in that she's a person without a country. I know I'm not pronouncing her name correctly. Kyojo is our Korean team member. And yes, I know Korea is a long way from England, but guess what? People travel. And and she was the daughter of also a merchant. And this is how people travel. They were tradesmen, merchants, went every place. And when her father passed away, she was taken in by an Ottoman family, a wealthy Ottoman family, treated very well, raised alongside his daughter until he was killed by assassination, and then she was sold into slavery because that happened back then. Very bad things happened. She got out of her situation when actually Morgana was hired to assassinate her owner, but by the time Morgana got there, Kyojo had already done it. So it's like, okay, you come along, you're with us now. Connell is Irishman and former Roman mercenary. Unfortunately, when he left the Roman legions, he found his village wiped out, and so just he didn't want to return back to that life as a Roman mercenary. Traveled around until he caught Ursmar, who is from Francia, pickpocketing him. And the two became fast friends after that, traveled together until they met up with Morgana and Getty. So the initial team was Morgana and Getty, and then the others came on later. And they all have their quirks and their place and their specializations. And they're all very good at their jobs.
It sounds like a precursor to like the Mission Impossible teams and the A Team and things like that we know and love. So.
Yeah, well, it was interesting doing the research to pull the characters together and where they could come from and create reasonable backstories for them of why they would become mercenaries. And yes, they're kind of a family, a very dysfunctional family, but it's also a business. Most of them really wouldn't have another place to go. All of their relationships are complex as well. And some of them are strictly in this for the money, and some it's the money and, well, we have fun while we're doing this because I don't mind killing people and it's my job. It's always fun as a writer to create worlds like this and characters. And I'm sure as I write more and more about these characters, I'm going to think of like, oh, well, here's this whole side story over here that just focuses on here. And then here's another one over here. And I'll just have to jot that down for future little shorts that will go in, other editions. Much like I do with Boston Metaphysical, in the trade paperbacks, I add 10-page shorts where we get to see little bits of the characters' lives, either, before Boston Metaphysical, or in between issues when something has happened. I'm sure I'll do much the same here.
The research side of things must have been fun for you because you are a lover of history from what I can hear and what we've talked about in the past here. What books or mediums or stories that you found in your research were just fascinating that you just couldn't include with the band of mercenaries you created in Morgana?
That would probably be too many to even go through. I know one of the interesting things was Getty's scarification, because he does come from a West African tribe. And I reached out to some African American creators who I know had delved more into the subject than I have. And they reached out to actually some academics, which was great. But trying to find some of these books they recommended, they're just not available to the normal person without, a couple $100 spent. Through their knowledge and research on my own, I did my best to be as accurate as possible. Any errors are mine, absolutely, and I will put that in the introduction to the comic. I do try to stay as historically accurate as I can, and that even includes, you will see little tidbits of science in this, because I just can't help myself. So because guess what? Science existed back then, well, and how it was used or how I use it in warfare. It's fun. So there'll be like little tidbits dropped here and there. I haven't exactly figured out what the extras are going to be for issue 1, but I may go into some of the things of the different colored smoke bombs that were used and the materials that were available at the time, and fun things like that. So people can go home and create their own colored smoke bombs at home using household ingredients. Yay.
all for in the name of science. Yes, science.
That's right. And to get it right for the comic.
As long as you don't have the recipe for Greek fire, you should be okay, right?
Yeah, well, you can get that on the internet now anyway, so you don't need my help for that.
Fair enough. Well, Madeleine, I do hate to say it, but that ends this particular episode of Two Geeks Talking. I want to thank you so much for coming back on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure. For those that want to support this campaign, where can we find you? How can we support you? And where's the Kickstarter and when does it end?
It's on Kickstarter.com. You just type in Morgana Pendragon or my name and it should pop right up. It runs until, May 2nd at 11 o'clock in the morning, Pacific Standard Time. You can also check out my website, queenofmercia.com, Facebook, either my page or the Queen of Mercia page, Twitter. There's so many social medias. Blue Sky, Instagram. I'm on all of those. I'm moving more and more over to Blue Sky, so I'm doing more stuff over there now.
Makes sense. So am I. Well, like I said, that ends this particular episode of Two Geeks Talking. You can, of course, find this interview and 1,200 plus others on our YouTube channel at this point, youtube.com/TGT Media. The podcast you can find at Two Geeks Talking, that's TWO.podbean.com, or just search Two Geeks Talking wherever you get your podcasts. And as I say every week, everyone has a story to tell. It's up to me to help bring that out. Thanks for listening and watching on Two Geeks Talking.